establish at least a couple of goals. One would be if we can get a vendor. We assume that we are all still in concert on wanting to go forward with this project, and pick a vendor, and then we wanted to get that vendor to present a contract and all the details and so on to us, so that we, by January 1st, would be ready to, that would be the plan to implement that. So that's sort of the...
And I wasn't really sure, and I expressed this uncertainty both to Audrey and when I talked to Sally yesterday. I wasn't really sure what you were expecting or anticipating from us here today. I mean, I went back and looked at the proposals again, and you know, I don't know that I need to take up a whole lot of time to restate what I've stated previously. And if I were selecting, or if I were making a recommendation, and the recommendation I would make would be to go with Geo, and I would make that recommendation for the reasons I made previously. But with that being said, this is a concept that Probation Services and myself personally have been behind from day one, as you all know, and regardless of who is selected as the vendor, for whatever the reason might be, we will do our best on our end to make sure that the program is a success. We want it to be a success regardless of who's overseeing the operation. I think if someone other than Geo is selected as a vendor, I think there's a lot more work in anticipation of opening that's going to have to be done. It's going to involve time with folks at Probation Services, probably Audrey and John and Sally most assuredly. But again, we're sold on the concept, dedicated to the concept, and I think everybody understands that that time needs to be spent. It will be spent because we want it to be a success. We think it's a great way of dealing with the recidivism issue, which we all recognize as being a problem. Our hope is, regardless again of who's selected, it will be a successful venture.
Thank you. We're sort of, in a way, trying to figure out how much we are going to be able to save at the prison side with that money we're already spending, and in order to get up to an optimal number, 110 or whatever that number is, and how long it's going to take to ramp up to that number. I think that's another thing that if we have 40, that's probably not a bad start, because we can refine. It's a controllable number, and the cost of that is manageable compared to 110. And, but I do see you get up to the 20% of the prison population. Now you're really doing something.
Yes.
In terms of having an impact on the budget down there, and then also the outcomes of more people and a bigger piece of our population. So
I spoke to my counterpart in Franklin County yesterday, and I'll get into that, the reason for it in a minute, because I'm anticipating, Joel, your question about some reimbursements that we talked about on Monday. But in speaking with John Hart, the Crimson DA, in speaking with my counterpart in Franklin County, some of you might recall that Franklin County, back when now Secretary Wetzel, who's the Secretary of Corrections for the governor, when he was the warden in Franklin County, they were building a new prison, and they built the prison sized with the DRC in mind, Day Reporting Center. So while they would have built a prison maybe for, I'm going to use numbers, 700, they instead built a prison for 450 because they were at the same time implementing. So they had an instant savings in millions of dollars, not building a prison to full capacity because of the DRC. That was a little bit of a risk, I think, but from what it sounds to me, that's worked out. And he also mentioned to me that it definitely has saved them prison days. The cost of keeping someone in the prison day by day. So he said they're definitely. I know there was some word that it was floundering a bit, but he didn't indicate that to me.
No, well, the commissioner that I spoke to was disappointed, and I think I expressed that, but it was a judicial issue. He felt it had created it because there was some turnover or changes there, different philosophy. And that was, his feeling was that it could be utilized a lot more.
From what I heard, it's working, and they're seeing some.
He's got a second opinion.
I think you'll see people avoid going to jail completely, but I also see that there'll be a savings in jail days by people who won't spend as long a time in jail,
Right.
as long as we have this other resource available to monitor them in the community and provide things for them in the community. So it's really kind of a twofold thing.
Can you explain to me how, because he mentioned that exactly what you're talking about, they're coming out of prison sooner than going to the day reporting center now. I often hear that there is no early release in Pennsylvania, I guess is that. So how does that work? You revisit it and then amend the sentence to let somebody go to the DRC, or how does that work?
When we sentence someone, we could, let's say on a first violation of probation or a first parole violation, our standard hit is 2 months. So our expectation, and everybody's expectation, is that unless it's an unusual set of circumstances, that person is going to spend 2 months in jail for that violation, 4 months on a second violation, and the rest of their sentence on the third. Well, we may look at it as the kind of thing where they come in the first violation and maybe they do only 30 days in jail, and then the second 30 days at the day reporting center, those kinds of things. So when I'm talking about saving days, even though they spend some time in jail, that's really kind of what I'm talking about. Those are the kind of things that we could dictate in our sentencing order to say precisely that the person would be, get 2 months, the first month to be spent in the county prison, the second month to be spent at the day reporting center or whatever. We could actually do that with any kind of sentence.
Okay, so not just a
Not just a
probation
violation
but
sentence,
anything.
even an original sentence that we're imposing upon some, we would have the flexibility of doing that. We could give them, let's say it's 6 months, and as long as Dave isn't objecting, we could give somebody 6 months and say, okay, you spent 4 months in jail and 2 months in the day reporting center. And I guess in the perfect world, I would envision a lot of people having that involvement with the day reporting center as being their transition from being in prison to being totally out of prison.
Would the first time, though, they still be able to not have any prison time so that they could avoid that on their
I think
record?
I think we'll see those people. They're not going to avoid having the conviction on their record. I don't think we're not talking about, and I've never viewed the day reporting center participation as being something that's going to result in charges being dismissed, but rather an alternative to going to jail. I hope absolutely will be there. When you're talking first offenders, first drug offenders, whatever.
I did have another question, Your Honor. When we start this, because I think we're all in agreement we would like to do something, will the people already sentenced in prison, which I think is what maybe Jamie was alluding to, maybe not, but will they get a chance at this?
I think that'll be up to us. We can do that. There would be nothing to prohibit us from having someone. I'll use the violator again, but let's say I put a violator in November, and it's a second violation, and the anticipation is that he's going to do 4 months. But if the day reporting center is up and running on January 1st, if I get the recommendation, let's say from probation services, that, hey, this might be a good guy that can take advantage of what's there at probation, at the day reporting center, I could re-parole him with the conditions
So you
that
can
they
amend it.
So we can do that.
Thank you.
And the probation department would identify those
Yes.
folks, is that right?
And just to give you an idea of numbers, I just looked at our violation numbers between June and mid-August, and we're just short of 200 violation petitions that have been filed. And some of those may be duplicate where somebody had multiple dockets, and obviously not everybody would be eligible for the deep treatment. But that's just a number, from June to mid-August, that's a larger number that we could choose from, and that's not including the domestic relations or bail situations.
And before you got here, Dave, we talked about a little bit, again, revisiting the fact that there's buy-in all the way around it about the program, but also just trying to get a grip on the numbers, and at 40 per day under GO be about 430,000 for the first year. Under PCS, it'd be about 225. You have to extrapolate a little bit, but Jamie did some of that to try to get just a sense of what the difference is to the budget. That's as far as we got.
May I continue on that issue?
I'm sorry, yes.
So, I guess this leads me to a question, hearing that you can sentence violators a little differently and give them a better chance, maybe, I think, transition back, second chance, I don't know how you put it, but anyhow. Would that potentially then change the philosophy on probation violations? In other words, so not every single violation ends up in somebody being jailed. I mean, there's discretion by the probation officer.
The discretion's really with us.
Okay, but I mean, not
With the
every
sentencing
infraction
commission.
ends up in
Right.
jail time. I think that's a
And
reality.
and sometimes they get irritated with, at least with me.
Okay.
I don't know if they get irritated with the other judges, but sometimes the POs get a little irritated because they make a recommendation, and I understand that that's their job, but it's my final job to make a decision as to what happens.
Okay, well then I guess the question is more for you than it is for the department, is that could your philosophy or the other judges' philosophies change and end up with more violations because the impact on the prison isn't as great?
I mean,
See what I'm saying?
finding more people in violation?
Yeah.
No, that won't change. Because I'll tell you this, our probation services department does a fantastic job of only getting people before us for formal violations that should really be there. And I don't think that's going to change at all. It's not guesswork usually about
Right.
whether someone's going to be found in violation. If someone's on supervision and they smoke pot, they're not bringing that person in on a formal violation for that first kind of thing. There's really nothing to be gained by that, bringing them back to us. They're responding to it appropriately, and that might involve the day reporting center. They might be responding to it in the sense of, okay, now you have a drug and alcohol evaluation, and if the evaluation says you need treatment, then you need treatment. So I don't think that'll change. I don't think that'll change our philosophy or the department's philosophy.
Did I just hear that it might be possible putting more people through the system of day reporting than we would have in prison if we didn't have day reporting?
No, I don't think you're gonna have more people in this. There are not gonna be more people arrested because we have a day reporting center. No.
You might have another tool though.
Yeah, we have another
For
option.
violators.
Yeah, we have another option for violators.
A lesser tool maybe.
But I don't think that will change. One of the reasons why you might pursue a formal violation against an individual, even though we might all anticipate that person won't be going to jail, but will be going to the day reporting center, is to have a longer period of time to supervise them to make sure that they do what we think they ought to do. Let's say they need drug and alcohol treatment, and they're near the end of their sentence when they do something. Maybe they have a month left, and we know that they're going to need 3 months of treatment. Well, you want to pursue that formal violation. You can take away their street time. You might put them back on probation and make a condition that they go to the day reporting center, and you have a longer period of time to deal with them. So I don't think it's going to change, that will change. Did that sound like gobbledygook? Oh, okay.
Can I take a moment and just, Commissioner Litz asked a question about reimbursement the other day, if I can take a moment just to address that. So we were talking the other day, Commissioner Litz asked about, is there any potential for reimbursement for the delivery of services that would come back to the county and offset the cost of day reporting? So in other words, if someone ends up with a mental health diagnosis or is sentenced to or assigned to drug and alcohol treatment, do the funds that pay for that, can they come back to the county and offset the cost of the day reporting? Is that was your question? Okay. So I spoke with Kevin Schrum, I spoke with Jim Dunmoyer at MHID and drug and alcohol respectively, and I spoke to John Hart, my counterpart in Franklin, because they've been up and running now for a couple of years. And the answer is no. Those funds don't come to the county. Those funds follow the individual. So if John Doe is is sentenced or is undertaking drug treatment, and he is eligible for the treatment, then the costs, the dollars are following John Doe.
So if a person goes to the day reporting center, they're assessed and they need drug and alcohol treatment, and they're provided with the names of the providers, and they decide to go to White Deer Run to receive their drug and alcohol treatment. White Deer Run gets the money.
Right.
Not us. Well,
But-
PCS gets the money.
But if PCS is getting the money, say it's a $200 bill for this person, they get reimbursed from drug and alcohol for $100, then they're only gonna bill the county $100 instead of $200?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
What they're billing for is the operation of a day reporting center,
Yes, exactly.
not for the
Provision of drug and alcohol
provision of treatment. That's the word I was
separate.
looking for, right.
But I thought they were providing treatment as part of the center, no?
Well, they're gonna provide, I mean, no matter who the vendor is, they're gonna provide, say, anger management classes or
Budgeting.
job hunting, budgeting, all those various things, and that, as I see it, is rolled into that per diem.
That cost.
That
That I
cost.
understand.
But if it's an assigned treatment that they as a provider or another provider, and we spent a lot of time talking about,
Yes.
you know, that they'll have choices of
Yes.
providers, then that money never passes through this process. That money is paid directly to the vendor, or to the provider of treatment, directly from MA or whatever, Health Choices, whatever funding source it comes from.
So there's no double billing, no double dipping, that we would get billed for the same service?
But no, and there's no double dipping that can be made on our part either.
Well, no, and I wasn't looking to do that, I was looking to
No,
reduce
there would, no,
costs.
they can't get paid twice. I mean, that's the funding streams that provide the dollars for the services are on top of that. I mean, they're not gonna
Well,
allow
one
it
of
to
the
be
issues
billed
that
twice.
we raised about PCS, kind of among ourselves and with you, was that whole aspect of who's gonna be providing that treatment. You may go to a day treatment center that's operated by PCS, you may be evaluated, you need drug and alcohol treatment. And I guess maybe the natural progression might be, well, I'll just stay with PCS then to get my drug and alcohol treatment. But the real aspect of choice has to be there for the individual. You know, the individual is not a captive of PCS
Right.
just because they're operating the day reporting center. If they want to go to White Deer Run or someplace else.
And I think that needs to be made very
Yes,
clear to the
yeah.
clients.
Yeah, I think it does too. And, you know, we have a little bit of concern about that. Not that PCS, if they're running the day reporting center, isn't gonna provide that information. But I think there is kind of that, you know, maybe a tendency to think, oh, I'm here already, you know, these are the people running this. And I think it will have to be
Well,
clear to
we're aware of
them.
that, yes, I mean, that's a good,
And if that's a pattern, I think we would have to address it.
Sure, yeah, we'll be able to obviously track numbers and see, you know, how many people came through and go to
100%.
treatment, and all of a sudden, if 95% go to
Right.
one place, there's an issue here, right?
And lastly, on that same issue, then, in speaking with John Paul and Franklin County, they have not recouped their costs. There is no revenue reimbursement stream
Is
that
there a
offsets their day.
copay for buy-in?
Is there what?
Is there a copay for buy-in?
They do have a copay. Now, John didn't know exactly what it was, but he said they do, there was something imposed, and again, that's up to the court on, you know, we had talked a little about that at the last meeting, whether it's $1 a day, $10 or whatever. But yes, in Franklin County, he said there is a copay or fee that's assessed on the participant. But that's the only means of anything that.
So that's in the judge's hands to consult and see if he will consider that.
But they've not found any other revenue source that helps to offset it. It is a cost. It's a cost of
Thank you for looking
Yeah,
into that,
but he-
because I was really curious.
And I think Franklin County is an interesting example, because they really experienced their savings of money big time at the front end.
millions.
Yeah.
Yes.
And looking at their program as it operates, the savings, they're not gonna be able to point to savings
Right.
the same way like we might be able to, because they got that all at the beginning, because they built a smaller
I
program.
have to think somebody was saying, this better work.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I'm sure
we're not building onto a new prison.
That's right.
I mean, that is,
I'm sure they
that's a good leverage.
That's a concern for us though,
Yeah.
too,
Oh,
down
sure.
the road. You know, I mean, we're not that far removed from,
Right.
you know, adding to the prison or something, so from that standpoint.
Well, when you look at our prison numbers for our average daily population down at our prison, and you look at other fifth-class counties, I mean, we're just off the charts, you know, in terms of how big our prison is right now. And I can remember when, years ago, when we went to this size of prison, and it was like, oh, there's gonna be all these extra spaces that we can rent out, right? Well, you know, the judges filled those spaces pretty quickly, I think, right? And not intentionally, it's just kind of the way it worked out. And we haven't realized that kind of thing for a long, long time, I think. Where initially we did have some cells, and then we went from singles to doubles to, it's been everything. And in terms of providing some relief, I think we'll be able to do that, for sure.
And some better outcomes. For sure. The one little issue, which isn't really because your buy-in is so, for your whole team basically, is there. So it's just a matter of communicating that so that we can maximize the benefit to the savings and offset as much of this as we can, knowing that it's going to cost money to do this, new money. And the best remedy for this compromise on that is to reduce the medical costs and the overtime and those kind of things down at the prison. So,
Well, I can speak for my fellow common pleas judges, and I can tell you that everybody's on board at our level. Commissioner Ames, you mentioned something that last time we got together about at least one of my MDJs that potentially isn't on board. I'm not sure who that is, but I don't know that that will be an issue. I don't think that will be an issue going forward. I think in terms of my ability to provide direction to them in terms of how they should approach
education.
this. Yeah, I think that will work out. Okay. We'll have to bring that.
You're so diplomatic. That's why you're the
Well,
president
I
judge.
don't know if that's, no, I'm the president judge because I've been here the longest. I don't know if I would have gotten elected if diplomacy was one of the characteristics, you know. So, like I said, we have not lost our enthusiasm regardless of who ends up running the show.
is that timetable still good if we can get consensus to vote to pick the vendor and then to get a contract to sign and implement by the first of the new year? Does that work with you folks?
I would think it would be from our end, but again, as I said, depending on who the vendor is that you select, I think there's more work involved up front with one vendor than there might be for another. So, you know, whatever your decision is, I would just say probably sooner as opposed to later, because I think there'll be a lot more prep work that needs to be done so that we're on the same page as the vendor when it comes time to sign that contract.
I've been, since we visited Franklin, probably 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah.
That was cool. We knew we needed to do some things to get to this point, and we're here now. And, you know, so I have total buy-in with the program, and my choice hasn't changed. It's still PCS judge, and I do bow to your, you know, your closeness to this issue, and but I got to look at the financial side of it and say that with the track record and the cost difference and so on, that that's how I got there. And the fact that we will be able to have a program in January, and you know, I think that's the greater good. Maybe, as you said it the last time, you know, I just don't want to throw the whole program out on the vendor selection, but you know, that's still where I am.
Do we know, as we sit here, if PCS can tell us that they can have a program up and operate in January?
I took the liberty to call Ruth and talk to her, because I don't make this decision lightly, and you know, double the money certainly speaks greatly to me, but I don't want us to make a mistake, and I don't want to be responsible for making that mistake. So I talked to her and said, you know, this is where I am right now. I want to be assured that you folks are going to do everything humanly possible, work with the probation department and make this work. And she, one, assured me that they're willing to do anything that they need to do. And then I also talked to her a little bit about the timeline, and she seemed comfortable with that. So.
Anything else anybody wants to offer?
John, where are all those numbers you got here?
Well, I'm from the grant end, so,
So that
so
what
we'll
I,
approach it from that standpoint.
what I try to do, I mean, if there's consensus on that, is to get with PCS, have them develop a contract for a first read. Involve our solicitor, involve Sally and whoever, and the judge and whatever designees from probation and the courts to review the content and make sure all, everything gets covered. And bring that to a point at which it can be presented for formal action. Understanding that if there are any glitches along the way, a final decision hasn't been made.
Right.
We run across something that just is insurmountable or whatever, then we're back to the drawing board, but that's what I'd like to do at this point.
There's something that I view, Judge, and I want to bring this to your attention as another advantage to selecting PCS, and that is that I have experienced from folks in the city some resistance to why does this day reporting center have to be downtown? Of course, Geo was looking at locations there as well.
Sure.
And when I indicated that PCS might be the vendor, there was a different acceptance. They said, first of all, they're there already. We understand that, so it's probably not going to be that significant a change. So I think it'll be a lot better accepted by some of the business people and the people in the city administration if we choose PCS for what it's worth. And I think that is an important piece.
Yeah, no, I think that's a worthwhile consideration.
Anybody else have any? Okay, then I guess that's where we are. We'll communicate to PCS because I haven't heard Commissioner Litz change her. I haven't heard Commissioner Litz give her.
You three are still on the same plan.
I guess, I just heard.
I guess that's the question. Yeah.
Oh, are you still supporting PCS?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So I'll put the ball in their court
Okay.
to start on a contract and we'll go from there.
Okay, great.
All right?
Okay.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.